How you doing?
Good, man. Sorry about the delay. I was just finishing up another interview. Went a little over, so.
I'm always suspicious of rock stars when they're on time. So it's rock and roll, man. You can do what you want. I'm still here, so it's all good.
Awesome, man. Cool. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being patient with me.
Yeah. So how's your day? You had a lot of interviews already?
Yeah, I haven't really done a whole lot today, honestly. Just kind of chilling so far. Yeah, just sort of doing my regular thing when I'm at home, which is nothing.
Nothing. So I guess you do most of the interviews before the release. So we're a few days after the release of RUCKUS now. So is it kind of calming down on the interview front? Is that how it works?
It's stayed pretty consistent, actually. Like we do typically do a lot of interviews beforehand, but yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's just that the record is like starting to catch on now that it's out and more people want to talk about it. So I actually have like a pretty busy week of interviews coming up. So yeah, I mean, a little bit uncommon, I guess, for what I'm used to, which is, yeah, mostly doing press stuff before the record comes out. But hey, I mean, if people want to talk about it and post about it and you know, show it love, then fuck it. I'm down for whatever. So
do you like talking about it?
Yes and no. I mean, I like talking about it as much as anybody likes talking about themselves over and over again. You know, at a certain point, I feel like, fuck, am I like tooting my own horn too much? But at the end of the day, like, yeah, you know, we love the record. I feel like we're all so proud of this record. Like, it is a fun thing to talk about because it's really validating to know that other people are like, yeah, dude, like this record is sick. Like we want to talk about it. We want to post about it. Like you guys are you know, stirring shit up, whatever. So yeah, it's nice that I am getting hit up to do some of the interviews because I'm just like, all right, cool. Like I guess something's working, you know?
It's definitely working. And you mentioned the word fun there. I feel like you guys sound like you're having more fun at the moment on this record.
Oh, yeah. Dude, we've never had more fun writing music before. I mean, this has been like the funnest sounding record, the funnest record to write, the most like fulfilling in every way record or collection of songs that we've ever created. Like it comes across in the sound. I mean, it comes across in the look and the branding of the record and in the name of the record. You know, like RUCKUS is like, it's youthful, it's fun, it's playful. There's like an energy to it that's sort of in your face and loud and kind of a lot all at once and kind of just, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's been so much fun from the writing process to now going and being able to play the songs live and just seeing people's reactions to them. You know, we truly are having such a blast and yeah, we're just excited, man. Excited for the energy. It's been really cool.
So like, it definitely sounds like a Movements record, but there is a shift in sound.
Yeah.
So we were all worried about that shift in sound, like how people were going to react to it, especially your like long-term fans.
I mean, yeah, there's always going to be the concern, right? Like, oh, are people going to fuck with this or are they going to be like, this is too different for me, whatever. At the end of the day, I think we all decided like that doesn't matter to us anymore. Whereas maybe it did in the past where we were like, oh, gotta make sure that, you know, we're writing sort of like songs that are going to resonate with people or make sure that we're doing something more like this because that's what people like. We all kind of collectively came to the decision, like, or the conclusion that like, it's not about anybody else. Like this band started as a project for ourselves, for our own creative expression and creative freedom. And it should remain that forever. This should always be something that we do for us because it's what we want and what we like. And you know, we're putting out the stuff that we enjoy and that we have fun doing. So yeah, when it came to writing RUCKUS, we all decided like, okay, we're not going to try and pander to anybody. And instead we're just going to write what comes naturally and what's fun and what and challenge ourselves to step outside of that box and step outside of that comfort zone. And as long as we like it and we are proud of what we're creating, that's the only thing that matters. And that's exactly what we did. And we ended up with 10 songs that are all, in many ways very different from old stuff, very different from one another. It's sort of a whole conglomeration of all of these different things that we're just trying and exploring because we can, because it's fun. And I think that we have, made 10 of the best songs that we've ever written and that we're all really, really proud of. So, yeah, man, like I'm rambling a little bit, but the moral is like, the worry's always there, right? Like, are people going to like it? Are they not? But at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. We like it, and that's what is important. And if other people also enjoy it, then that's amazing,
Yeah. And people can smell whether it's authentic or not, I think.
Absolutely. And that's like the big thing too, right? Like no one on like an industry side of things sat us down and were like, you need to write this kind of music because it's going to make money. Like no one's telling us what to write. No one's like influencing our decision making when it comes to what we create. Like we do this shit because we like to do it. Like we enjoy making fun songs and like stepping outside of that comfort zone. Like no one wants to do the same fucking thing over and over and over again. How boring would that be? So yeah, man, like we're just stoked about it all. Like this is something that we are like actively conscious about and like really, really trying to hone in on. And it's just been fun.
I know you've been working on it for quite a while and it's been out for a few days now. Have you listened to it since it's been out?
I gave it a full Spotify listen on the day that it came out because I was like, well, this is like so cool that it's finally all on Spotify. Like I've been having to listen to it specifically from a Dropbox link for the last year. So the fact that I could like go and stream it, I was like, wow, that's sick. So I listened to it from front to back on release day. And I was like, cool. And I haven't listened.
We have to say it is available on other streaming services.
That's true. Yeah, it's available. It's available everywhere. I just happen to be a Spotify user.
Yeah, I'm Tidal. So
nice. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's not everything now. But I'm curious, like, as the person in the band writing the lyrics, when you hear it after it's been released, do you listen to it differently, do you think?
Not really, honestly. And I think that maybe that's just because like I obsess over my lyricism to a fault. You know what I mean? Like I am so particular and so meticulous about every single word that I write. And I would say that 90% of the songs that I do write end up going through 4 or 5 versions of themselves before they end up being the final version. And that could be as big as changing an entire chorus or rewriting entire verse structures or whatever, to as little as changing like literally one word or one phrase, but I go through every single song so in such a detailed manner before they even come out that like every word on this record, everything I'm saying, all of my inflections, all of my cadences, everything, it's all been like very meticulously planned out. So to me, it's not so much different after it comes out. It's more so like, I don't want it to feel different. I don't want to have any sort of like, fuck, should have done that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have those moments. So I try to make sure that I don't have those moments by being as detailed as I can. Because there have been times with like previous releases where maybe I have felt that way. And nowadays I try to really maintain like a solid, like, this is what I want to say. This is what I need to say. And sorry, my phone just did something weird. And just have it be exactly what I want it to be.
Are you good at like signing off on the album? Like it's done?
Oh, it's done.
But do you find that easy, that process of saying, yes, it's done?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, right? Like, there's always going to be, I think, like, as a creative, I think you're always going to want to be a perfectionist about shit and be putting out like, oh, like exactly, exactly what you want it to be, and nothing's ever going to be perfect in art. Like, art is objectively an imperfect thing. So at the end of the day, there's always, I guess, things I could change or I could do differently. And maybe in some cases it can be a little bit like hard to say like, oh yeah, like, not, like put the pen down and be finished. Right. But yeah, I think that over time you kind of learn to just accept like what you've written as like being like, the best that it can be, given that time and that space. And I'm sure that like, I wrote these songs over a year ago. If I were to write the same songs now, they probably would be different, but that doesn't mean that they're not like meant to be what they are, because at that time period, like they were, you know what I mean? So
yeah, it's a bit of a snapshot in time, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what I wanted to ask you about your process of like how you get to a song, but I want to do it with a specific song on the album, which is my favorite song on the album, which is Dance with Death.
Cool.
Like, I love how the album kind of flows anyway, but I feel like when that song comes on, is a bit of a defining moment on the album for me anyway. So can we talk about that song in particular and how it started and how you actually build it?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's awesome that's your favorite song on the record. That's easily like in my top 3 favorite songs on the record as well. I really, really love that song. And it's interesting because that song was sort of a wild card. We weren't sure if it was going to make the record or not. And we had actually come down to that song and another song that we were kind of like flip-flopping about whether or not they were going to make the record. And that's the song that ended up making the record over the other one. Yeah, but I'm so glad that it did, because truly that song, that it means the world to me, and I love it. But yeah, that one started off as sort of this, it started off like most of our songs do, which is just like instrumentally. And we were trying to kind of just like find the right sort of flow and progression that took naturally. And it went through a few different versions of itself before we landed on what it is now. We would write certain things and then maybe dislike how they kind of flowed together after a while. So we would restructure it, change it a little bit, whatever. The whole record was just, we would, all 4 of us, the band, and then our producer, Will Yip, all of us would get together at the studio each day. We had like 3 writing sessions that were 2 to 3 weeks long each. So we'd have like 3 weeks of writing. We'd be gone on tour or go home for like a couple months, whatever, go back to the studio, do another 3 weeks of writing, go on tour, go back to the studio. That was sort of our process for the record. And so every morning that we would go into the studio, we would kind of just start a new idea and just see where it took us. We didn't write anything ahead of time. We just went in and like did it from scratch every day at the studio. And so, yeah, Dance with Death was one of the songs that we really enjoyed, but enjoyed pieces of that. As a whole, it needed some reworking, some refreshing, some fine tuning before it got to the place that it is now. But once we did get it to that place, it was just like, okay, yeah, this is something really special, and we really, really liked it. So once we had like a structure down for the song, and this goes for most of our songs, but usually once we have like an instrumental structure down, I then start working on my melodies, cadences, and kind of singing essentially what is gibberish sort of over each track until I find little words that stick or phrases that I feel like, oh, like that sounds really good right here. And the inspiration, I think, behind this song in particular was very much inspired by like Jimmy Eat World. And I was really vibing off of like kind of their sort of signature like phrases and cadences and like how he sings and whatever, and that was really inspiring me when I was listening to this track. And so I kind of like loosely, you know, based it on that sort of sound, but also again like kind of making it my own. And yeah, I mean the song itself has like a pretty like interesting story, I guess, behind it, because when it came down to writing lyrics, I wasn't really sure what I wanted it to be about. And then I was thinking back to a moment where a couple years ago, it was during COVID, or maybe right before COVID, but my two best friends and I, we were out driving around the Hollywood Hills, which I don't know if you've ever been to the Hollywood Hills, but it's a lot of real real tight kind of roads. And
I was actually there the week of COVID, like, as everything started shutting down. I left California.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, so yeah, we were out there like Mulholland Drive, that sort of thing, and it was late at night, and we were just kind of fucking around, like really weren't doing much of anything. We were just, I think all of us were sort of feeling weird about what was starting to happen, so we were all kind of just like, fuck, like this is like kind of too much, like let's just go do something and like get our minds off it, right? So we were just kind of driving around, having a good time, talking shit, fucking just, you know, no real aim or plan, just having a good time. But it was pretty late at night, and we were out on these real windy roads and probably being a little bit more reckless than we should have been. And there was like a brief moment where we kind of like came around a corner a little too fast and got kind of close to potentially dying in what would have been a pretty gnarly car accident had we flown off the side of this cliff or something. And we all sort of were like laughing and talking, and then like, yeah, it sort of happened so quick that we were like, oh fuck. And then it got silent for a second. We all kind of looked at each other. We were like, damn, that was crazy. Like that, we almost died. And then the joke was, man, everybody would have been so sad if all three of us died just now. and then we just were cracking up about it the rest of the night. And it was like this funny, weird thing where it was like, yeah, that was really scary. And like, we could like probably like, you know, take that as like a learning experience, but also like we made it out and it was fine. And at the end of the day, like we're just having a good time with, you know, our friends or whatever. So it was like not as heavy as it could have been. And I just loved that. And it really reminded me of like, you know, not just the literal, like, you know, being with my friends and getting out of a sticky situation together, but also like the more kind of emotional side of things where it's like, these are the people who've kind of gotten me through and been there with me through the hardest parts of my life. And that I can always turn to in the end. And so it's like using that kind of almost near-death experience and also applying that to like, well, this isn't the first time that my friends have gotten me out of something sticky. Like they actually get me out of shit or help me through shit all the time. And it's sort of like my ode to them. So I was like, fuck, I think that's a really cool idea. So how do I put that into words? And then, yeah, like, you know, I just kind of was like, it started off with just me describing exactly what happened and then how I felt in that moment, imagining what the headlines would have been had we all died in some fiery accident. But then I was like, well, wouldn't it be funny if like, instead of the headlines being like, oh, like 3 killed in a car accident, it's like, but is it actually sad? Like, were they killed in a car accident or were they killed like having a great time, you know? And that's like what it ended up being. And yeah. And so I loved that idea. And that's where the song came from. And we just stuck with it. And yeah, I think once I showed the guys all the lyrics, because at first they were like, what is the song about? Like what's it going to be about? Like, it feels like it's going to be something kind of like heavy. And I was like, yeah, it's about almost dying in a car crash. And then like, oh, fuck. And then they all heard it and they're like, yo, this is sick. Like this is really cool. So yeah, man, it was cool. It's one of those like funny, weird stories that it's such a specific, brief moment, where like that literally the entire 3.5 minute song is about pretty much like a 15-second interval of my life and a very, very brief moment of time that I shared with a couple other people. And being able to expand on that and take that little tiny little split second of fear and like, oh fuck, and turn it into a whole song, I was like honestly really proud of. And yeah. it ended up being probably my, if not my favorite, like my second favorite on the record.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that we got that song out of that situation, but I'm more happy that you're around to tell me about it.
Yeah. It definitely would have been sad if all of us died.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you just briefly about your listening habits as a music fan. Do you think your listening habits have changed since you started making music yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that, I mean, obviously when I started writing music and writing lyrics and stuff, I was a lot younger. I mean, the band itself started when I was 19 years old, and I'm 28 now. So I've grown up a lot. My tastes have changed a lot. My tastes have widened a lot. I mean, I listen to a lot more now than I used to. And I think that just comes with age. But I would say that like early on in the writing process, or early on in like the band, and when I was first starting to write lyrics, I based a lot of like my writing style around what I wanted this band to kind of fit into, like, or the world that I wanted our band to fit into, which was what I was listening to primarily at the time. I mean, I grew up in like the hardcore scene in Orange County, and through that I sort of also broke into like that kind of hardcore adjacent realm of more melodic kind of stuff. So the hardcore adjacent, I guess, emo revival sort of thing that happened when Title Fight was on their up and up, and it was like this whole core group of bands. It was Title Fight, Balance and Composure, La Dispute, Pianos Become the Teeth, Even Tiger's Jaw, Super Heaven, Basement, like all of these bands that were kind of defining this really specific pocket of the scene. That was like the shit that I worshipped. And I only wanted to like write in a similar style to that because I only wanted to fit into that world, not expecting this band to take off and to become what it's become. Right. So at the time, I think I was very like tunnel vision as far as like, no, this needs to be very specifically one vibe. Right. And as I've grown and as I've gotten older, and not to say that I don't still love all of those bands in that specific genre and pocket of the music scene, but my taste is just so much wider now. And I listen to a lot of different things now. So I'm a huge fan these days of pop music. And that's only been a thing that's happened within the last 4 years or so that I've actually really started to enjoy pop music. Which was something I would have never been listening to earlier in our career. But these days, I'm a huge fan of Harry Styles and of Justin Bieber and fucking Billie Eilish and like all of these like huge like international fucking superstars that are just really paving the way for pop music these days. And I wanted to draw inspiration from different like areas. As I've gotten older, I've wanted to expand on that inspiration and bring more of what I like about those things into what I create and what the band creates. So I think there was maybe a little bit of fear when we were writing our last couple of records, where it was like, well, we can't go too far outside of our box. We can't go too far outside of our comfort zone and start bringing in these weirder elements and these different inspirations because it won't flow well. It won't work right. That's not what people want from this band. And as we started the writing process for this record, we all collectively made the decision, like, let's not think about that. Let's not pander to anything, about what is expected of this band. And let's just specifically write what we want to write and the things that inspire, based on the things that inspire us. And I'm not alone in that. I mean, the rest of my band also have obviously all grown up a lot since we started this band. And so their tastes have changed. Their inspirations have widened and that sort of thing. And we're all kind of bringing in all of these different inspirations into the writing process now so that we can sort of break the mold and break that ceiling of what the expectations are and what this band could be above those expectations. I think that there is a significant degree of like us wanting to grow and continue to expand and continue to really turn this band into something that could be a very successful career, right? Because at the end of the day, again, none of us ever thought that this band would get as far as it's gotten, ever. We would have been totally satisfied having been a moderately well-known local Southern California band, maybe someday selling out like a Chain Reaction or something, that would have been enough for us. We would have been on top of the world. And now here we are 8 years later, and it's like, we've accomplished so much more than we ever thought we could. So it's like, okay, let's get serious about continuing to push this and see how far we can push it and see where it goes. If we do something different and it fails miserably, whatever, who cares? There's nothing to lose here. There's only something to gain. So yeah, I mean, that was like very much our headspace with it all. And, trying to just do something that we felt was different and fun and cool. And if it means that it opens up some new doors for what we can accomplish, then that's the best case scenario.
Yeah. Amazing. And, I think if a band experiments and it doesn't quite work, that doesn't mean you can't go down a different path and try something different after that. There's plenty of bands that have done albums that maybe didn't fit into their discography at the time, but
yeah,
they didn't die from that.
I don't think that we'll ever stop experimenting with stuff. I think that when you stop having that drive to do something different or to like challenge yourself, like it would just be so boring. There would be no growth. There would be nothing special about like my favorite bands and my favorite albums are the types of bands that have consistent growth each time, and that each record sounds, distinctly different from one another, but it's at its core, it's still that band. Right. And I think that that's like a really cool thing. And I would hope that all of our records, for as long as we can continue to be a band, like have something that sets it apart from what we have done prior. Because again, I don't want to be bored. I want each one to be different.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like following your heart and trusting your gut instinct is working really well for you at the moment. So just keep doing that.
Yeah, thanks.
So what's next for you?
Next up, we have tour coming up in a couple of weeks. Full US headliner. It's actually our biggest headlining tour that we've ever done. Kicks off with the biggest headlining show we've ever played, which is at the Palladium in Hollywood, which is like
nice.
over 3,000 people. It's like fucking huge. So yeah, can't even fathom that that's happening. It probably won't even hit me until I'm on stage. And then, that kicks off the tour for about a month and a half. We're doing that. And then we play When We Were Young, the big fest that's happening in Vegas, playing that in October. And then I think we're home for a little while. And then we go to Europe and the UK and do the same thing. Big headlining tour over there. And that's kind of the rest of the year for us. And then next year, A lot more touring, a lot of international stuff. We're hoping to get back over to like Asia, Australia, fucking maybe even go to Japan, that sort of thing. So hopefully South America as well, because we haven't been to South America yet. But yeah, man, just gonna spend the next year or so just like really, really pushing this record and touring as much as we can, and yeah, see where it goes, and then hopefully 2025 we'll start the next one. See what happens with.
There you go. Well, sounds like it's all like looking good, and it's good to find you in a good space as well. So I just wish you all the best with it. It sounds like you're gonna have a good rest of the year, and I kind of feel like next year might be even more exciting for you.
Yeah, I hope so, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'm glad that you enjoy the record, man.
Yeah, it's been really nice talking to you. Thanks very much for your time.
You as well. Yeah, thank you for having me.